Yeah, you just have to show up, but definitely get out there, look look for events that might be of interest to you, and go out there to go back to those five people, try to think of what you would like your life to be like, and who has whatever it is that you would like to have, whether it's if they have the type of relationship you want to have, or if they have some kind of material thing that you want to have. Who is that? Where are they at? If you can think of where they might be, then you need to start looking for those events and then show up, and don't rush yourself, but just gradually ease in there and be around them. But it all comes down to showing up. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen. So, introvert or not, just be in the room. Get into the room. That's the most important thing.
Hello, and welcome to episode 136 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. It's a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review. That would mean a lot to me. Tell a friend about the podcast. Help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Nick Shelton is a speaker, social strategist, and coach for introverted career professionals, as well as a best-selling author of the book, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination. He has been fine-tuning the craft of effective high-level social strategy and networking for over 20 years. Nick has successfully built a strong international network of friends, colleagues, and associates. He believes the quality of your life comes down to the quality of your relationships. Now he teaches others how to easily navigate social events and situations with the goal of making real connections and building relationships that matter. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Nick. So excited to have you on today.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, we're going to get into the work that you do and the book that you've written. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your journey. When did you discover that you were an introvert?
Well, I figured out I was an introvert. Well, I knew that something was different, early on. I just didn't know what to call it. And so I'd say when I found out I was introverted, it was probably later on in, I'd say maybe middle school by the time. I was definitely that way in elementary, but I'd say middle school is when I knew the terminology and everything like that. But yeah, I knew that I was expending a lot of energy when I would socialize with people. So I would try to isolate that socialization to one or two people, mostly one person. And then I was able to be really good. But then once I started trying to branch it out, then it would be really draining, and I had to get some alone time to recharge. So then I figured out, once I started seeing those definitions, I was like, oh, okay, now I see what it is. So contrary to, because before people would just say, oh, you're just shy. But introversion, as you would know, introversion isn't necessarily shyness. People confuse it with shyness. Shyness is separate. So you can be introverted, you can be shy, you can be socially awkward. You could be all three of those things, which I was, but they're all different things, but you can be all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you come across the term? It sounds like you actually came across it much earlier than a lot of people I talk to.
I think that one of my teachers, Mrs. Slusser, see, I can't even remember the name, had mentioned that. And then I had looked it up because I know that, like, my parents were really big on looking stuff up. So if I'd ask them something, and I don't even know how much they knew or didn't know, because whenever I'd ask them about something, they'd say, look it up. We have dictionaries and the encyclopedia set here. Look it up. So anything you wanted to know, they would say, look it up. And so there were no computers to look up anything. So
Right.
I would look it up and figure it out. And so that's how, I think, yeah, Mrs. Slusser, I believe, brought that word into my vocabulary. And then I did the research.
Yeah, I'd be interested to dig up one of those encyclopedias and see what introversion said and see if it's changed at all over the years. But yeah, that's
Right.
very interesting.
But I know it wasn't the definition about expending energy for social interactions. It did not say that, but it broke it down in a. It kind of tied it in with the shyness, but it did have it did hint at that broader definition, and
Yeah,
so it gave a good starting point.
yeah, absolutely. So, how did you embrace being an introvert then?
Well, I just figured, okay, I need to learn how because there's so many opportunities out there that I was missing out on because I wanted to be cool and it's socialize with everybody. And, I saw people doing that. And then, I wanted to, potentially date or try to date. And, if you're not talking to people, that's not going to happen. And there's all, people are having parties that are going roller skating and stuff. And I did some roller skating, but if you're not talking to people, you're not getting invited to stuff. So I would try to organize it in such a way where I would pick out, okay, so instead of just going into a group, and this is what my girlfriend's daughter, her daughter's friend is dealing with now. She would just walk up to a group and be like, "Hey, everybody," and try to get into that group. But she's meeting a lot of resistance. And I'm like, no, that's not the way you do it. You have to pick one person that's in that group and kind of go for them. And then you can maybe ease your way into the group. So for me, I would say, okay, they're going to have like a birthday party or whatever. I would like to be maybe invited to that. So who are the players in that group? Who are the main VIPs, and then I would pick someone who I thought that I might have something in common or a bond with, and then I will go and talk to that person. And then so I'm not burning up a whole lot of energy, and it's okay where I'm picking the interaction. So I have the first mover advantage here. So I would go up and talk to that person and try to build the bond with the one, and then hopefully that one, after vetting me, I know we were kids and all, but they could be like, oh, he's cool. You should consider having him come to the roller skating party. And so I try to figure out what are some ways that I can work with my skills, because I believe that one of the superpowers of introverts is observation. So I'd sit back and I'd watch, and I'd say, okay, I'm watching the social dynamics with these groups and other people. And so I can see who seems more approachable, who seems more open, that I can go and talk to. And it was fairly effective. It wasn't like right now I have it dialed in a lot more to be able to explain it. And it wasn't like that at the time. It was more of a natural thing where I'd just say, okay, that's Jeremy. And Jeremy, it seems like he would be open to, like, if I went and talked to him, but I didn't break it down into, then I'll be vetted and then he'll go. And it wasn't that complex in my mind, but it was just kind of how do I get there? Let's take this approach.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I didn't realize that you'd come up with strategies so young. That's awesome. And of course, then you wrote about them later as an adult and definitely tweaked them and honed them and that kind of thing. But you came up with strategies far younger than a lot of survival. Yeah, that's great. This show is definitely about talking about strengths. And you mentioned observation is a great strength that we have. Introversion isn't the same as shyness or social anxiety or being socially awkward. I will tell you on those things, like for me figuring out that I was an introvert helped me overcome shyness, because I'm like, oh, I do need to think before I speak. And it's not strange, and
Right.
It helped me overcome my anxiousness, my awkwardness. We're always still going to have awkward moments no matter what, but
Yes.
I'm not so worried about it. But that was part of that. And then of course, strategies for success, and that's what you've written about. I've been reading your book. I love the title. What is the title?
It's An Introvert's Guide to World Domination.
Yeah, very cool. So,
Thank you.
so again, it sounds like you were developing strategies very young, but then what
Yes.
caused you to write this book?
So this book, so later on, years later, I started speaking on this topic. People would ask me, "Hey, can you come to this place and speak on this topic?" And because I had my first speaking topic that I ever did was uh, it was network infiltration for introverts with limited capital. That was the first talk I did on that sort of topic, and people said, "Oh, can you talk about that here?" And so whenever I would talk about it, people would say, "Where can I get your book?" And I didn't have a book. And so I said, "Well, several people now have asked me where they can get my book, and there is no book." So I figured, I should probably write one because, supply and demand, there's a demand apparently for this. So I will write the book, and that's the real reason why I wrote it. People asked where it was, and so I said I better get one. So wrote the book to help people who were hungry for that information.
Yeah, so I saw this quote on your website, and I also read in your book, and I'm familiar with it too. And the quote is, "You are the result of the 5 people you spend the most time around." How was that impactful in kind of changing your life and where you want to go?
Right. So when I had heard that, some of the 5 people you spend the most time around, I was thinking, well, who am I spending my time around? And are they where I want to be? Are they helping at least propel me there? Do they have the same vision and goals that I have? And the answer was no, that is not the case. And so I didn't just say, "Bye, everybody, I'm leaving you all." I just figured I would start to dial back some of the time that I was spending with people that, did not have the same ambition and goals that I had, and then try to say, well, what kind of life do I want, and who's doing that already? And so it's like, okay, so who are the people that I admire, that I want to be around, that I want to get those habits, and where are they at? And then when I figure where they are, how do I get to that place where they are? And then once I get where they are, how do I actually connect with them so then I can spend time with them? So that's how it all kicked off, where I said, I need to figure this out if I'm going to, because sure, it's an easy saying to say, but then there's a lot of steps that you have to do to figure that out, to be able to pull it off and do it. And, so I had to figure out step by step how to get there, and then be around the people. And we can get into it deeper if you like, or
Yeah,
what would you like to?
absolutely. You figure out what is it that I want, and that is going to be different for everybody. What do
Yes.
you want, and then how do you get there? And what we're talking about specifically, how do you get there when you're an introvert? How do you embrace those gifts that you have, gifts and skills and strengths, and also honoring your needs? But you definitely had some great adventures. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, you wanted something else and you decided to, go for some different things that maybe weren't experiencing before.
There were a lot of there's a lot of different little adventures in there. I know that one thing that I had mentioned was the when I went to the pilots meetup, and I'm not a pilot, but I said it would be really interesting to know pilots and to meet some pilots. So I got on, I guess it's like meetup.com, where they have these things where you can go, and people are organizing these events. And so I figured you have to show up. And as the introvert, you don't have to do it. I tell people you don't have to show up and be the belle of the ball, the talk of the town, and the star. You just need to be in the room. Just get there. So one day I was like, man, it'd be cool to know some pilots, because then, I'd know some pilots, and maybe I can get on a plane or something. Maybe somebody has their own plane and they might want to offer to take me somewhere or something. I don't know. And so I got on there. I went to the pilot meetup, and it's a bunch of pilots, and they said, "Oh, what do you fly?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm not a pilot. I just wanted to see what was going on with the pilots and meet some pilots." And yeah, met some cool pilots. And so that's really cool. And the also the like the car dealerships and the there's a Cartier event that I found fascinating as well. So one of the things that I talk about is to find the event. So I like a lot of high end stuff. But I was like, man, it'd be really cool to do this. So I would get on the email lists, and so I call spamming yourself. So I'd go and look up something. So I'd look up polo online and be like, okay, there's a polo event, and they want your contact information. So I'd put that in there, and then Ferrari, go to the Ferrari website, put your contact information in, you put all your information in, then they're like, oh, someone's interested. So then they start sending you stuff. So then if there's some kind of event, then you go. And I tell people, you gotta show up. You don't have to. And people will be like, well, I don't know. You don't have to be cool and go. I didn't say be cool and go. Just go. Show up, and then you can just sit back and observe. You don't have to do anything, but that's how you start. And then you can move on from there. But it all comes down to finding things you're interested in. And so an easy step for your listeners is find something you're interested in. There's going to be a meetup or something about, so you can look up meetup.com and see if there's any meetup groups for that. And then also whatever sites you can find on that interest, go there, put in your contact information, and you will start getting stuff in the mail. If it's your actual physical address, stuff in the mail and email, you will start getting things, and you'll start getting invitations to things. And then your next step is to show up.
Very cool. Sounds like you had some good times there.
Yes.
I think you hit on something. Well, a myth I often bust is people say, oh, introverts, they don't have a lot to say. And I say the opposite. I say we have a lot to say because we're always thinking.
Yes.
But we do have our things that we're passionate about. And so we don't always like to talk about stuff that we're not so passionate about. And I think you hit on something. Yeah, find people that share your passions, and you're going to have lots to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Or passions that you are interested in.
Yeah.
Because so you might not know about it, but if there's something that you would like to know about, if you show up and you ask somebody about it, they can't wait to explain stuff to somebody new because they're passionate about it. So, for example, opera, let's say, if you don't know anything about opera and you show up at an opera, and then during the intermission, you ask someone and say, hey, this is my first time. How does this work? What's something good to see? What should I do? Someone's going to be like, yes, oh, I get to mold this person through my eyes on what's good, what's not, and this is what you do. And so they will take you on as their pet project to educate you on that. So you don't really have to carry the conversation. They will explain everything to you, and they'll be really excited to do it.
Yeah, but you have the interest. You want to learn more. It's not
right.
Yeah. So that would be me at the opera. I wouldn't know much, but I could definitely that's great.
Yeah.
So how do you do this socializing and networking while staying true to yourself as an introvert?
Well, so I just try to make sure that it's kind of what I call it, budgeting my energy. So I just kind of plan it out. So it's not like I'm doing stuff every night I'm out on the town. I'll say, okay, I have an event on Thursday. And so I'm going to give myself this certain amount of time. I'll show up, and then I will, and it also depends on where kind of how comfortable you are in the steps. Because at first I'd just say, just show up. Just show up. Don't even try to do anything because it might be too much. Show up and just kind of get the lay of the land and see how people do things. Observe, get something to eat. But if you're past that, then I would say show up, and then you'll start doing stuff like I talk about hunting introverts. So there's going to be someone introverted there. You'll see them because they'll look how you feel. They're going to be around the edges somewhere, maybe looking at their phone. Go engage with them. And then you don't have to, once you feel like you're starting to get drained, then you have permission, you can leave. And, I talk about leaving events also. You can leave, but first you have to show up and Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to do something once they show up. Show up first, and then once you're there, depending on how far you want to take it, if you've shown up and you're there 10 minutes and then you're like, okay, that's all I can do today, then leave. But at least you showed up, and then next time maybe do a little bit more and do the hunting the introvert and talk to the one and save them, and then maybe add another one for your group of three. But you have to kind of be aware of what your energy is like. So if you're all peopled out and you're just like, okay, I'm done. I've talked to this person for a half an hour and now I've got nothing left. I don't want to talk to anyone else. I'm ready to go. Then yeah, you can go. So for me to maintain my sanity and stay true to myself, I have to kind of recognize when my body's telling me I'm done. And it happens pretty quick, because I'll just be there and everyone's like, oh, hey, it's Nick. And then I do that where I talk about in the book where I'll say, I'll go to the bathroom. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom. And then I go to the bathroom and then I leave. and I'm just gone, because when it's time for me to leave, any extra minute past me feeling it's time for me to leave is excruciating to me. So when I'm ready to leave, I'm ready to leave now. And I do that. I let myself do that. So yeah, you naturally have to drive yourself or have your own transportation so you can leave. But yeah, so it's okay. Introverts need to know it's okay to be able to know, okay, I'm done. Politely excuse yourself and go get your energy back, go rest up, spend some time alone.
Yeah, I think that's key, giving yourself permission. It's okay. You showed up. Hopefully you did what you set out to do, and it's fine if you're ready to go. And I think a lot of times we feel very awkward about that.
Yes. Yeah, it can be weird sometimes to just like, this doesn't seem like the right time to leave. But I've left at some really strange times where I go to like an award ceremony and people are, not for me, but to honor someone else. And then right before they're about to hand out the awards, I'm like, well, all right. And then I just leave. They're like, you're leaving now? Right before they're doing the thing? And like, yeah, it's time. I got to go. And sure, it's a little awkward sometimes, but I have to take care of myself.
That's funny. I had someone on my show, fellow introvert, and he said he was never going to accept the invitation for the boat cruise, because you can't leave. When you're ready to go, you can't go. So he wasn't going to accept those invitations in most cases.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, yes, you're on the boat. Yeah, you have to know yourself well enough to know, okay, is this going to be something? And that's happened to me before. I've done excursions up in the mountains, like where you take a bus with a group up into the mountains or something like that. Like, well, I'm just here. I better just settle in. But that doesn't mean you have to be engaging the whole time. You can just talk for a little bit. And as long as you're not sitting next to somebody who's a super talker, you can just kind of shut it down. Or if you are next to the super talker, maybe you'd be like, oh, I got to listen to my book on tape or my audiobook or whatever. You can do something to try to bow out and have some alone time. But yeah, you have to be aware of what you might need before embarking on something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us more about hunting an introvert. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so when I started going out to these events, I was thinking, okay, because there's always, when you're looking at the room, there's always, somebody that's like the life of the party. There'll be 2 or 3 of those. Yeah. And there's like little groups around them. But then there's a bunch of people that like that person doesn't seem like they're too comfortable. They look uncomfortable and they look kind of lost wandering around. Like, okay, that's like me. So we can both just be alone and confused, or we could be together and have a united front of confusion together. So I'd say, okay. And this all started with someone doing this to me. I showed up at some event, and then a husband and wife, they said, hey, come sit with us. And when I sat with them, they said, we were talking to each other and we said, we should rescue that guy because we saw you wandering around. And then so I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, yeah. So now I think of it as like for the hunting introverts, I'm like, I'm going to rescue this person. And it's better because I get to choose. Because if I'm just wandering around, then, maybe someone will grab me. But if I'm the one hunting introverts, I'd be like, that person right there, that person seems like they don't know where to sit. They don't know what to do. They're looking confused. They're pulling out their phone to try to look like they're busy, but I know they're not. And so I will go over to them and I'll say, hey, and it's just engage them on some observation about the room. And now they're relieved, like, okay, I'm clinging with this person for the rest of the evening. But what I also explain is it's best to have groups of 3. So you want to get a third because that way you'll be able to leave when you want to leave. Because if just 2 people, then it's hard to say, yeah, I'm done talking to you now. I'm going to just leave you here alone again. But if there's another confused person, you say, let's rescue this person. Then you bring the 3. So now with 3 people, there's enough people to keep the conversation going. If it's just you and another person, then it's hard sometimes it might, but it's way easier if there's a third. And then if you want to leave, you can say, oh, I'm going to go get some snacks or something. And then you leave, and then they're going to just be there because they're not leaving. They're going to be there for the rest of the night. You can always go back there, or you can find another introvert to talk to if you want to talk about something different. It gives you an escape plan, but it just gives you an advantage to do that first mover advantage to go in and hunt your own introverts.
Yeah, that sounds like a great strategy. So if you're 3 and then you go down to 2, do you try to get another third person, or?
Yes, if you are in the ideal number is the 3. 4 is too many because then somebody's always just quiet and just hanging around, not participating. And naturally you'd be like, well, maybe that could be me. I could be the non-participating 4th. Sure, but you're there to socialize a little bit. So 3 is ideal. So if it goes down to 2, you try to get another person. And if it's 4, then you should probably just, unless it's a super interesting conversation, then you can leave and just leave them as their 3, and then you can go start over and find either one, or you can find a couple. So there could be a husband and wife, or it just could be 2 other people that are just sitting there talking, and you can kind of look at them to see if they are in an in-depth conversation, if it looks like that, because then you don't want to come up, hey, I'm here too, when they're talking about, something private. But they're usually, I like the husband and wife thing because they're normally tired of talking to each other anyway, and they talk to each other all the time. So then they're like, oh, here's a new person. So you can just go up and talk to them, and they will usually carry the conversation and be inquisitive on finding out about you, because they already know each other. So they want to know about you. So then they will ask you questions, and all you have to do is just answer the questions.
And, another myth is that, I hear introverts don't like people, and that's so far from the truth. But we do thrive in smaller groups. That is true. We do like, and it's interesting that you say then 4 becomes too many. And I'm thinking about that. Yeah, because there's too much conversation, and where you might not get a turn sometimes.
Right. Yes. In 3, you usually are going to get a turn, but at 4, it starts getting complicated. It's time to move on.
So you definitely have been talking about the things that you do at the networking event. I know that you wrote in your book that introverts, it's good to get there early. And what do you mean by that? And then just take us through some other things that you do at the networking event, have a successful time.
Oh, yeah. So getting there early, and a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's critical, because then you walk in, you get to see how the room is set up. You get to see where the food is, drinks, sitting, standing, how everything is. And then you get to see everyone who comes in. So you can choose, who do I want to talk to? And so once again, the hunting introverts, you can see someone come in and say, I want to talk to that person. Or you can not want to talk to that person, but it gives you this advantage of just seeing the lay of the land. Because if you come in later, then everybody's already there and you're walking in, making this entrance that you don't want to make. And now you have to look for where's a seat? Where's a seat that I can sit in? How does it work? And now I think it feels a little awkward when you're late and everyone's there because they're settled. But if you're there before they're settled, then you can say, I want to sit at that table, and you can sit there, and then people come sit with you instead of you trying to be like, can I sit here with you guys? And then also, one thing you can do, which I believe it's mentioned in the book, that one time I went into a situation where it seemed like there was a lot of people there already. I wasn't early, and it's like, it seems like everybody knows each other. And I don't see any introverts around the edges to hunt. What am I supposed to do? So the host, it's like, okay, the host has to talk to me because I was invited by this person. So they're obligated to talk to me. So I went and stood next to the host and said, this is a great event. Thanks for inviting me. And then as people were coming in, the host shook their hands and said, hey, thanks for making it. And then I shook their hands and said, thanks for coming out, So then they think that somehow I have something to do with this event, and they're meeting me. I'm Nick. Thanks for coming. And then they're like, okay. So then after about 10 people came in like that, then now I know I just met these people. So then before they get settled in completely, I can go over there and sit with them because, oh, I just met Nick and he has something to do with this event, obviously, because we just met him with the host. And so that's another thing that can be done if you can position yourself correctly. But it's just always good to get there early just to see what's going on, get settled in, and then you don't have to figure it out later. You can be one of the first people to figure it out. And you can explain it to other people as they come in. Yeah, the sandwiches are there, the bathroom's back there. They got furniture in there. There's a couch in the men's bathroom. And so this place is really high end. You never see the couch. And there's art on the walls. And so I tell people to also, for a conversation, just observations, because people always wonder, what can I say? And so I'll do the temperature of the room, hot, cold, what's the food like? What kind of, have you been there before? Was the food different? You can talk about that. You can talk about what they're wearing, nice eyeglass frames or whatever, or there's so many things. Just look around and then comment about whatever is happening in the room. So it's and once again, once you're doing this, you can burn through your energy very quickly. And then if you do, leave. You can leave. It's as easy as that. No matter what's about to happen, you could be at a thing and the show's about to start. You'd be like, well, I don't need to see the show now. I'm just going to leave. But it's so early is, in my opinion, it's the best advantage. Plus, if you're there earlier, then you can leave earlier if you want.
Yeah, I definitely like to pick my seat. I'm kind of particular about where to sit.
And you get also, to do that.
Yeah. Also, I think that some anxiety comes from unfamiliar situations because we do tend to turn inward more often. And so what you're saying is you get there early and you really can observe what's going on. And that can definitely reduce anxiety like you're describing.
Yes. Yeah. There's other people they come in, they're trying to figure it out. You already know. You already have your sandwiches. You already know where you're sitting. And there were some conferences that I went to, and I would get there, and then there's some tables that people were already sitting. And then I have the decision where I say, do I want to sit at this table with this group that's already sitting? Or I can be the king of the table over here. I'll be the first one to sit at this table, and then we'll see who chooses to come sit with me. And I can also wave people over. Come over here, sit with me. And then they're sitting at my table. And so that's always, I don't know, it feels good to me to do that.
Yeah. So you get there early, and then in your book you write about how to make your entrance. What do you say about that?
Oh, the cape walk. So
yeah, the cape walk.
So I always say, like, you would walk in like you're wearing a cape, because one of my friends had said, I don't know what I look like when I walk into the room. I don't know if I look approachable, if I look weird and creepy. And if you walk like you're wearing a cape, then you're always going to have good posture, and you want to walk so like the cape would have a nice drape to it and flow correctly. So when you walk in, so I always say, I sometimes say it out loud. I don't yell it or anything, but I'll say the cape walk, and then I walk in, and it always gives you this like, who's this? Who's this walking in? And men and women can both do it. You just walk like you're wearing a cape. Anyone can put that into practice. And when I was doing workshops around this, I actually supplied capes for everybody, and we all got up and walked around the room, and you can feel that difference. Like, oh, when you have that cape on, you're not slouching. You're looking good. This is the best version of you with this cape. So, and that's the best way to walk into the room. You can be not doing that when you get up to the entrance, but once you cross through that threshold, cape walk.
So in your in-person workshops, the actual cape made a difference. People were walking more confidently, differently.
Yes, yeah, I because I could say, let's just pretend like we have capes, which that's effective. But I said, let's just get a bunch of capes and actually put capes on people. And yeah, it was it's great. People, everything changes. Everyone's like more upbeat and smiling. They have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, and so the cape, definitely makes a difference. So you just have to remember what that's like and actually walk like you have the cape on. And if you're really bold, you maybe actually wear a cape to the event. I don't know. You'll definitely have a conversation starter.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool way that I find to just make sure that I'm put together and my posture is good and I look confident and like I know what I'm doing when I walk in.
You have another strategy. It kind of like when you were saying, was it your friend, I think, that didn't know how they looked? And sometimes, as introverts, our facial expressions may not match what's going on inside.
Yes.
And so you have another strategy for that as well.
Yes. So that is the Duke cookie face, I believe you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. So that's usually I do that when I'm sitting. And so it started off when I went to a Christmas holiday party with my girlfriend at the time. And it was the company that she worked for. So I knew that, like, I didn't know anyone. I knew her and then one other person. And I knew that everyone was going to be looking at me like, who did she bring? What's this guy about? And I didn't have time to meet everybody, nor did I want to meet everybody. But I said, they're going to be making assumptions about me, and I need to appear cool. And so I was thinking, okay, so how do I sit? And so I was thinking about, royalty and noble people. And so it's like, okay, how would a duke sit? And then it's like, okay, they're not running everything, so there's not a lot of stress, but they're up there, so they're gonna have a good posture, but they're not gonna be slouching, but they're not gonna be stiff. They're gonna have like a confident seating thing. So I would tell people, Duke or Duchess, however you want to do it, whatever you picture in your mind, because there's no real wrong way. I'm sure there is maybe a wrong way, but whatever you're picturing how a Duke or Duchess would sit, just sit like that. So that's how you're going to sit, and that'll give you your good posture and a relaxed posture. And then for the face, it's like I had this expression where several times people thought that people would say, do you want to fight me or something? Why are you angry? And it's like, what's happening on my face
Right.
that people think that I want to fight? And then there was a lot of people that would say, you're so serious. Why do you look so serious? I'm like, I'm unaware and I'm looking serious. So I said, okay, if I walk into my best friend's house and as soon as I cross into the door, I'm hit with the smell of fresh baked cookies. And across the pond, they call them biscuits, but you get that fresh baked smell. And I like cookies, so I'd be like, oh, hey. And so I know cookies are coming. They're going to offer me some. And so I would have I'm anticipating cookies. Cookies are coming. So that facial expression, so I just say in my mind, cookies are coming. So I'm sitting like a duke, and my image of what a duke would sit like, and then my facial expression is cookies are coming. I'm going to be offered cookies soon. And so that gives me a good welcoming expression. People say, oh, it's like he has a glow. He's so friendly because cookies are coming. And when I'm looking around the room, if I lock eyes with somebody, there's eye contact, I telepathically send them cookies are coming. So then, and I don't know on their end what they're getting, what they receive from me, but they're like, oh, there's a sparkle in my eye. They're getting some good energy because I'm like, hey, I'm just letting you know, cookies are coming. So people feel that I'm approachable. So I remember after that event, my girlfriend said, everybody liked you. Everyone said that you were really cool. And I only met a handful of people, but everyone was, checking me out, kind of looking, feeling me out. And since I was sitting there with my little glow, people came away with a really good opinion of me. And I was like, okay, this is something. And then so I started expanding on it and doing that and trying it out in a lot of different places. And I noticed every time I did it, it's like almost magical. All kinds of really great interactions would happen. People would come and so I didn't have to go and approach people. So if you do this, like if you show up at an event early and you sit at a table by yourself and you wait and you do that, your Duke or Duchess cookie face, people will say, I need to sit there. This person seems like they're really comfortable, confident, welcoming. And so you just draw people into you that way. And I would constantly have to remind myself, am I still doing it? Am I still doing it? Because, sometimes you'll forget and you'll kind of revert back to not that. And then so like, okay, yeah, get back into it, do cookie face. And so, yeah, if your listeners want to try it, they will feel the difference and they will see the difference in their interactions. This is something they can do right away. They could do it today and they will see results today about it. Everybody who tries it ends up loving it because they will see something wonderful, some kind of cool interaction happen from it.
Now I want some cookies.
Yes. And yes, after I first started telling people about that, people would bring me cookies all the time. And I was like, oh, I don't need actual cookies all the time. I take the cookies, I accept them, but it's like, there's probably some healthier options, even though they probably won't give me the same facial expression if you just brought me a bunch of celery or something or kale something.
Right. But often we are misunderstood because we might be drifting inward. We're thinking, doing some deep thought and, we may not look approachable and that kind of thing. So I think it's a really good strategy to remind yourself of something like cookies or something like that, where, you
Yes.
are looking like your happy self.
Yes. Yeah. So whatever your listeners like, so there might not be cookies, but if there's something that they really enjoy, just imagine that you're about to be offered that, and then that will give you the proper expression to hold.
So when you're doing these events, whether it's with pilots or you're at the opera or wherever, how do you avoid imposter syndrome setting in?
Oh, so for me, I know that a lot of people have issues with that. And for me, there's several things. Like, so one thing I could say, I'm becoming this. So I'm not expected to necessarily know all the stuff. I am learning. I'm here to learn. I'm becoming it. And the quicker that I can explain to somebody that I don't know, kind of like what we touched on earlier, if I show up at a beekeeping event and I don't know anything about beekeeping, and there's one way where I can be like, I have to look like I know about beekeeping, or I can immediately tell somebody, I don't know how this works. Please explain it to me and forgive me if I am doing something wrong because I don't know. Then that takes a lot of pressure off because then they're not expecting you to know what to talk about with the bees and how to act around bees or anything like that. So just admitting that you don't know, that's one thing. Another thing is I like to tell myself, oh, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. And you can do anything in your dream. This isn't real. Sure, this would be awkward if it were real, but it's not. It's a simulation. And so if you can convince yourself that that's the way it is, then it's very helpful. But I think for me, the easiest thing is just telling somebody as soon as you get there, like just saying, I don't know what's going on. And so like I would hold these wine and cheese events, and some people really know about wine, and they'd be like, "Oh, what do you think of it?" And I'd say, I don't know. I don't know about it. I just got some, and I asked the guy at the store, what's good wine? But if I was trying to seem like I know, then that's where the a lot of the issues come in. If I'm like, I don't want to be discovered that I don't know. But if I just admit, I don't, yeah, I have no idea. And a lot of times what will happen is sometimes people will think that you're just saying that, but you really do know. So I could be like, no, I don't really know about wine. They'll be like, oh, yes, you do. Like, no, I really don't. I don't know. And so, but you've at least put it out there, and then it usually takes for me, it'll take the weight off of me if I just claim to not know. I don't know what's going on. Like, I love sailboats. And then if I get on a sailboat, then people are like, oh yeah, do you want to help out? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, you love sailboats. You go sailing all the time. Yes, true. But that doesn't mean I know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I will help, but I don't know what I'm doing. Just so you know, don't expect me to know what I'm doing. And so I've done that on dates where I'll say, yeah, I have no idea what's going on. And, sometimes it's met with, some laughter, and it's fun. And then other times you're like, really? But yeah, for me, I would say that's the key to just getting rid of it out of the right away, is just vocalizing to somebody that whatever it is that you're insecure about, just say, yeah, I don't know. Kind of like the pilot. I was an imposter at the pilot's event. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not a pilot. I'm just here. I'm here. I was in Sri Lanka at a high-level criminal attorneys gathering in Sri Lanka. And it's like, I'm not a attorney. And these are the top criminal attorneys, and they're all at this thing. And I was like, and I made a video about it. I said, this is imposter syndrome here. So like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Like, well, I was just invited to come, so I'm here, so I can talk to you about whatever you want, as long as it's not about whatever it is you guys do. And that's why I admitted that right away. I don't know anything about that. But if you want to talk about like my favorite pizza toppings or something, I gotcha. I'm there.
Do you have any other tips for introverts and confidence?
Let's see. Confidence. I would so the most important thing is just show up. And then for me, the confidence is a little tough, because I know a lot of people, for that comfort zone, people really like to be in the comfort zone. And I always like to try to push my limits, but a lot of people don't like to push their limits. So I'd say for the confidence, the more reps you can get in, then the more confident you'll be. So if you show up, so that's why I say that when you show up at one of these events, you don't have to try to do everything the first time. Just show up. If you just show up and then you leave, at least you showed up, you went in, and then you can walk in, get yourself one of those little finger sandwiches, turn around, walk out, and be like, oh yeah, I was there. And then maybe the next time you go in, and then you might go and stand next to somebody and watch some other people talk and not engage. Then you can leave and then come back and just add on to it. So to get some confidence, I would say, yeah, the more reps you can get in, then the more you can be like, okay, I've made it this far before, I'll just add on to it. And then you'd feel a lot more comfortable than if you were just trying to do everything the first time and make the big jump. If you just take just baby steps, and you don't have to justify it to anybody, and you don't have to say, well, you just, because you know where your limits are at that time. So I'd just say, just try to push just a little bit more, and then you can stop. Give yourself permission to leave and do something else. But as long as you're moving forward, then you will start building the confidence. But yeah, it just happens a little at a time. Some people can push a little farther, but if you're not one of those people, then just take the baby steps, and you will build the confidence through those repetitions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both refer to that as like expanding your comfort zone. I know that
Yes.
changing your thoughts is an important part of that. Hey, you know what? I can do this. That's not so bad,
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
that's go ahead.
I was just say as introverts, a lot of times, people say just get out of your comfort zone, but we probably have been doing that. And if you don't like change your thoughts, you're just going to keep getting out of it over and over again, where you can actually expand it like you're describing, by taking baby steps or however far you're willing to push that, but you can change it so you don't have to just keep getting out of it.
Right. And one way that I have done that in the past was uh, so for example, when I was meeting girls it was really tough when I first started doing it, but then I met someone in college they did this every day. They would go out and talk to girls. And then I was with him. And then he's like, let's just go to McDonald's and go talk to some girls there. And I said, what? And then so I was just with him. So I was just standing next to him and he was talking. And then I would go, yeah, just add on to whatever. And then after just being around that energy and just being next to him doing stuff, that really expanded my ability to break out of my shell and talk a little bit more, because I'd say, okay, I'm watching him do it next to me, and now I'll just add on to it. And now, so it made a little crutch. So I was like, I need to be with him when we do this. But it did help expand my knowledge and expand my comfort. So then when I was in a situation that was just me, I'd say, well, what did we do before? I remember he said these things, so now I'll say these things. So that kind of helped. So if you can find, so whatever the situation is that you're trying to do, if you find somebody who's really comfortable at whatever that is, and you just happen to be with them, and you can say, hey, I want to go with you whenever you go to this. Or if you're going to an event and you say, maybe you can come and although I try to tell people to go by yourself, because then you're forced to talk to other people. But if there's somebody that is really good at something and you can have them with you, then you can kind of maybe learn, what did they do? How did that work? And then you can throw in, yeah, me too. Yes, that's right. And that might also help.
Yeah. So you go to the event, you make a good connection, and maybe that's all you're there to do is make one good connection. Then how do you follow up after that? How do you maintain the relationship beyond the event with this good connection?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's really important to follow up, because a lot of people are horrible following up with people. And so I like to follow up right away, like the next day, because that way you're still fresh in the other person's mind. And if you have an address, like if you have a business card or something that you got from them and it has an address, I'll send actual mail. I'll write something out and send it to them, because people don't do that these days. So it'll really make you stand out. Or if you don't have that, you have the email. I'll send an email and say, hey, it was great meeting you, and we talked about XYZ. And, I might ask them a question about something just to kind of get the conversation rolling, something simple. And then, that's at the beginning, just to keep things going. So not delay a week or 2 weeks. So then they're like, who? I don't remember. It's just like that. Next day, hit them. And then after that, my maintaining the relationships is once every 3 months, so quarterly. If I haven't talked to someone, I make a list. I go through all my contacts, my phone and email contacts, and I see who have I not talked to that I would have liked to have talked to in the past 3 months. And then I make a list of those people, and then I start moving down the list. And some people I might call, some people I will, my favorite thing is sending a little video. So I'll get my phone and I'll make a little video. So that way they can see me with the body language. And then I'll ask, how was your knee surgery? How was your kid's karate championship? How'd that go? Here's what's going on with me. So then that way they'll know what's happening with me. I'll ask them about them. So then they'll usually respond, and I'll know what's going on with them. So that way, every 3 months, I will know what's happening, and everyone will know what's happening with me. So that way, if there's something that comes up that they think I'd be a good fit for, it hasn't been 5 years since they talked to me. They'll be like, oh, Nick's working on that. Or we have this sailboat and we have extra space and Nick likes sailboats. Maybe he would like to go. Or I would know something that they're working on. They say, hey, I'm working on a book. Do you know a publisher or something like that? And I'd say, or they might just say I'm working on a book. And then I might say, oh, I know somebody that you should probably talk to about your book. So there's, if they know what's going on with you and you know what's going on with them, then you can help each other and you stay top of mind, you keep it fresh. But everyone always wants to wait and say, well, I reached out to them once and now it's their turn. They got to reach out to me. But no, don't do that. You have to take it on yourself and say, I'm going to keep this going. I'm going to be the one, because everyone's so horrible at it. If you wait for them to do it, it's just not going to happen. You have to kind of carry the torch.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, we've talked about so many great things, so many great strategies. Is there anything else you want to add, Nick?
I would just say, yeah, you just have to show up, but definitely get out there, look for events that might be of interest to you, and go out there to go back to those 5 people, try to think of what you would like your life to be like and who has whatever it is that you would like to have, whether it's if they have the type of relationship you want to have, or if they have some kind of material thing that you want to have. Who is that? Where are they at? If you can think of where they might be, then you need to start looking for those events and then show up, and don't rush yourself, but just gradually ease in there and be around them. But it all comes down to showing up. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen. So introvert or not, just be in the room, get into the room. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick, where can people find out more about your book and the work that you do?
So the book, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And also you can go to connectedintrovert.com, and that will also lead you to the book and to all the wonderful things that I'm up to.
Sounds great. I will put that in the show notes, and it's been a lot of fun chatting with you tonight, Nick, and thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts, links to social media, and other items. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link to the show notes. There's so many great things about being an introvert, so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.